What is really good, y'all? How are you doing today? Welcome to the End Goal Podcast episode. I don't even know. I think this one is 15. Like, I'm pretty sure last time I said it was 15 and it wasn't 15, so I'm pretty sure this one's 15. I don't remember. I really have a better way of tracking this. I have a notion. I have things to actually track this properly, and then I just don't end up like using it or keeping up with it, or something drops off and then I forget. 15. So this one's episode 16. Let's go. This one is actually episode 16 of the End Goal Podcast. How are y'all doing today? I hope your last week was dope. I'm still going through it. I'm still having this issue with these hives, and this allergic reaction. I don't know what the fuck is happening, but it's happening, and it's really annoying. Um, so what basically is happening is that uh, something that I'm allergic to, and I think it's some sort of grass that is around me, has caused it, and I'm still continuously somehow being exposed to it, and then it is causing me these issues because otherwise there's like no reason for it to be doing this right now. Like there's no reason for me to be having these issues right now if it wasn't for like the grass or whatever it is, you know? And that's kind of the annoying part because like I don't even know. Okay, so I got my allergy test results in. I'm allergic to like nothing. Everything came back negative except for 5 things. You wanna know the most allergic thing I'm allergic to? Timothy and his grass. I don't even know who Timothy is. Why the fuck am I allergic to his grass? Like, what is going on? So I'm still going through that, and it's actually affecting my day to day because it's like I don't want to go do things, and I don't want to wear certain clothes and go outdoors and all this stuff because clothes, long sleeve clothes, will just itch me all the time and aggravate it, and then it gets worse, and then it's just a bad time. It is just a bad time all around. Um, and I don't like it. It's really frustrating. But what are you gonna do? Shit happens. So we're still trying to figure that out. I also went to the ENT, and your boy might be getting a nose job this year or some other year afterwards. Because I have a deviated septum, like a nose septum. And the funny thing about that is that every single time I think of the word deviated, I keep thinking of standard deviations and from like probability and stats class, which I was absolutely garbage shit tier at. So, but it's so funny that I always think of like standard deviations when I think of like my fucking deviated septum. But I have that. I have soft cartilage. I have nasal stenosis, is what it's called, which is like my nose right here to the nostrils at the end of the nose, like that connect to the main bridge of your nose on the edges. That cartilage is very soft, which I know. And so whenever I try and breathe in deeply or breathe in through my nose, it actually like collapses in with the air instead of staying open. So it also limits my breathing. All this stuff. So your boy might be getting surgery. Who knows? You know? Who knows? I don't know. Do I want surgery? Would love not to have it, but it's a simple nose job. It should be fine. I'm wondering how accurately they'll put my nose back together to where my nose doesn't look any different because I don't want to change my nose, right? I have the classic Zoroastrian, like Parsi, Indian, Persian nose, like it's a larger nose. I want to keep that, right? If you look at me, this nose like is part of the aesthetic. And if it goes away, I don't know what I would do with myself, you know? So there's also that. And then I don't know if my voice will change all that much because my voice does have a slight kind of nasal twang to it, as some say, because of like all these issues. So I do wonder if that will change. So I'm interested to know about that. I don't know when it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen at some point. So we'll see. You know, it is what it is. Anyways, um, I've still been reading. I've I've not been reading actual like text-based books because I've fallen back into the trap of reading manhwa, Korean comics, as they say. Uh, and I've read about almost 10 in the past week. So, needless to say, I've not been keeping up with my TBR for January, but it's fine because I did read into chapter 2 of Ali Abdal's Feel Good Productivity. So, per usual, we're gonna get into it. And I didn't finish the entire chapter. I read for about 20 minutes and I kind of stopped because I was like, I'm getting what I want out of this, but I don't want to keep reading and just overloading my brain. Um, so, chapter 2 is power. It's still part of the energize section of it, but it's called power. And it's basically a take on feeling powerful within whatever you're doing to continue doing it, feel confident, whatever it is. Like personal empowerment, right? Basically bringing things into your control and making you realize that you do have control over a lot of the things that you do or that you should have control, right? They say your job is in your control, your life is in your hands, and decisions about your future are yours alone. That's the goal, and that's where the power comes from. And they did a couple of experiments. So this one was interesting, where this was basically experimenting with confidence and how it affects your results. So they had two groups of students, right? Students in group A, which was a high confidence group, um, and students in group B, which are the low confidence group. Now, the what's it called? The sample of this experiment were women, and they were testing um their VO2 max and their stamina and stuff like that on an exercise bike. So from the first group, in the high confidence group, they had everybody do one round, like for 20 minutes, go as long as you can or whatever it is, right? I think that's what it was. Um, and then for people in the high confidence group, they told them, "Hey, you're fitter than most people out there." And people in the low confidence group, they told them nothing. Or actually, no. Um, Sorry, the people in the low confidence group were actually told that they were unhealthy. So when they came back for round 2, people in the high confidence group performed better than their previous round, and people in the low confidence group performed worse than their previous round. So thinking you're bad or good or bad at something does affect how you actually end up, doing it. That's one aspect of the fake it till you make it concept and the theme that a lot of people like use to model their initial stages of their career or whatever they're learning is faking till you're making it. The next thing is self-efficacy, which is interesting. Um, but basically, self-efficacy is just like feeling like you're good at what you do, as opposed to knowing that, "Oh, I'm an amateur, I'm a beginner, I'm this, I'm that, I'm not as good as I think," etcetera, right? It's basically self-confidence. Let me see what else. What else? I have flagged a lot of stuff in here, so I'm just trying to see what I wanna actually talk about. There is a story in here where Ali Abdal says that one of the things that he's done in the past when he was, growing up was basically asking himself, "If I were a confident person, how would I behave in this situation?" As opposed to being the person that I am, who's not a confident person at this stage in life. And, really playing the part in a sense, fake it till you make it. So you're playing a character that is better than who you are now. And so if you're playing this character, how would the character behave in this situation, right? If I'm recording and talking to you guys, how would a podcaster talk? How would a podcaster share information? How would they actually speak? What would their voice, what's it called? Connotation, base, all that stuff, right? How would a successful person and a competent person do that? And then just emulating that, right? Even though if you don't think you can do it yourself, emulating what you think somebody like a successful person would do basically means you're doing it yourself anyway. Now, this concept he talks about in his social model method section of the chapter is called the vicarious mastery experience. And it's basically the concept of I know somebody else can do it. I've seen somebody else do it. Therefore, I'm more confident that I can also do it. And then you're more likely to succeed. That's the gist of it, right? How many times have we tried to do something thinking, "I don't know if it's possible to do this, but I've seen somebody else already do it, which means it is possible, which means I should be able to do it as well," as opposed to thinking, "This is impossible. I can't do this at all, and I've never heard of anybody else doing it, therefore it must not be possible. I don't even wanna try." There's always mental blocks like that. So that's the vicarious mastery model is, finding success vicariously through others or watching others people's success and letting that, guide your own confidence and therefore results into success. There's another concept, called the inactive mastery experience, which is basically you find success through doing what it is you do versus watching somebody else succeed and then thinking, "I can do it too, and then I'll try it." Learning through doing is what it's basically, called, which I think most of us can relate to the fact that, you can hear other people's experiences as much as you want, but you can try and learn from other people's mistakes, but you're gonna have to do it yourself, go through your own mistakes, and learn through your own experiences more than you like. Let me back up and rephrase that, right? There's gonna be inherently more value in you doing something yourself versus just listening to somebody else, before you even try. So whether you're learning, whether you're watching videos, whether you're taking classes, whether you have a mentor coaching you through things, always find time to do what it is you're learning and figure out like, am I doing this right? Am I doing this well? Instead of, just thinking, "Oh yeah, let me go through this entire book of information and this whole training, and then let me try doing it." Do it as you go, learn as you go. That's kinda what I do, and that's what I tell myself with content stuff. You'll learn and get better as you go. There's a phenomenon called the protege effect, which is basically, you learn better as you teach someone else, or teaching is another form of learning, where 2 students, 2 they okay, I'm just gonna walk this entire experiment with you all because I think it's pretty interesting. So it was a study from Stanford School of Education in 2009. You had 62 eighth graders brought into a biology class. They're split up into 2 groups. And so group 1 was told that, "Hey, listen, you're being tested on how well you can teach this material to somebody else." And then group 2 was like, you're just gonna get an exam on this after you learn this material." Um, so people in group 1 had to learn it well enough to explain it to a third party, and people in group 2 just had to learn it well enough for themselves. And, you know, I'm pretty sure you can guess what the result was there. People in group 1 had better results than group 2 because their kind of peak or their goal for that, for their knowledge wasn't, "Let me figure out a way let me figure out a way to understand this myself." It's, "How can I understand and internalize this and then teach it to somebody else," right? And so you don't have that buffer or that leeway of, you know, I can skip this. I don't wanna learn this. I can learn something else, or, you know, "I think I know this. It's fine. I'll just guess if I get it wrong, or, like, I'll just guess when I get there," whatever it is. No, like, you're teaching somebody else. You don't wanna tell somebody else wrong information, right? This goes back to a concept of basically doing things for other people versus doing them for yourselves, where it's very hard to, like it's hard to convince yourself to be deceptive to somebody else versus being deceptive towards yourself. If anybody comes and asks me a question, you don't wanna give somebody wrong information intentionally. Therefore, you're probably gonna say, "I don't know, I can check and get back to you," or "Let's just Google it right now together," but I don't wanna tell you something that I don't know, versus say you have a say you scroll across, and we do this a lot of times, right? You scroll across articles, you scroll across videos on your phone, online, whatever it is, and you have some sort of concept in mind of like, here's this news article. Hmm, here are my thoughts about it. I've only read one news article that introduced the situation. I'm not explaining it to anybody else. It makes sense to me. Move on. Versus, do I really understand this topic well? Should I go research it more? Should I not create my own opinion on it until I know more about it? There's a lot of things that go into that, right? Is the knowledge I have good enough for me versus good enough for somebody else? And that's kind of how I think about it a lot of the times, where I don't like to really give people um, 100% information, or I don't like to frame my answers to anybody in terms of I know this 100%, listen to me. It's and the internet has been shying away from that for so long now, because there's just so many ways to refute people's claims and what they think, and we all think we know more than we actually know and all that stuff. Um, the internet's gone towards, let me suggest and advise, and just let me put this out there, but just know that these are my own thoughts, and they're not fact and all that stuff. I'm not a financial advisor, all those kind of things, right? Um, that's been going on a lot in the industry, or not in the industry, online in general. But it stems from this whole thing of like, I don't want to give somebody else wrong information, and then it come back and harm my reputation with them, or I don't want it to come back on me, as opposed to sometimes, or I don't want them to look bad because they're going to go share that information with somebody else, etc. So the protege effect is really a great way to facilitate deeper learning of any sort of topic. Is how do I learn this well enough to teach it to somebody else? This one was actually really interesting, though, and I think it makes sense. This is the self-determination theory. So, this was conducted by Edward Deci, a psychologist from Carnegie Mellon University, or he was researching this after graduating from Carnegie Mellon University. My bad. I've been talking a lot today. Apologies. So he found that those who were offered a financial reward for solving puzzles were weirdly less likely to enjoy the task, and were more likely to give up solving the puzzle after the reward was removed, compared to those who weren't offered any money at all. The material rewards seemed to make people less engaged with the task, not more. This led DC to conclude that the offer of a material reward can peculiarly decrease motivation. And that's so interesting, right? Because how many times have you, a working human being, been asked to do something and you don't want to do it, regardless of how much more money you might, like, if someone says, "Hey, I'll pay you for it," that doesn't matter. I don't want to do it. "Hey, I'll pay you for it." I don't care. I don't want to do it. How many times has that come up in your life? Maybe not a ton of times, but any reward in general, right? Sometimes, like, having a reward in place does ruin the effect of said um task you want to do, because I don't know about you guys, but to me it's framed like, am I doing this for a material purpose, or am I doing this for myself? Um and I think that's where this self-determination theory is getting at, which is basically, we want to do things for ourselves. We don't want to feel like we're doing things for money and for material reward because we're materialistic and all that stuff, right? We want to do things for ourselves, because we practice self-love and self-care, and we're above material things, all that stuff. And at the end of the day, sometimes you do give in, right? Sometimes there is a number that is high enough for many people. Maybe not all, but for many people, there is a number for which you would do things. It's just, and then you start comparing, is the difficulty of the task equitable to the reward that I'm getting, and if it's not, do I want to waste my time doing this for the reward, etc. All those things. Um, but that is a very interesting theory, the self determination theory, and I enjoy that a lot. I like that. I think I stopped there. I stopped basically there. Um, so I learned a lot from that chapter, and it was really nice. And I don't know about you guys, but I generally read. The reason why I take such like slow time with books like this is I really want to internalize what I'm reading. I don't want to just read through it and like, "Oh, I got that information, nice. Now I can just tell somebody else about it that I know this stuff, and it'll be all okay." No. I actually wanna think through this information that I'm getting because there's a lot of good information in books like this, but I think people just focus on, um they focus on what's it called? They focus on wanting to get the information, but they don't wanna use the information. Does that make sense? Like, me reading about the 4 levels of pleasure hormones, dopamine, and stuff that we talked about in previous episodes, me thinking about these different theories and, like, how it applies to my life and how it has applied to my life, how I could apply it to my life. That's what I wanna do with this. So I wanna read it in bite-sized chunks where I can actually sit down for 20 minutes and just read maybe, like, 10 pages, but I've gotten good information out of those 10 pages versus just, flipping through pages, yeah, okay, makes sense, sure, ooh, that's nice, and then just keep going, and then I finish it. But then I don't really get anything out of the book, right? By doing this, this is my way of the protege effect, right? I'm also doing this because I also want to share with you guys what I am reading and how I'm thinking about it, how I'm feeling about it. But I can only do that if I'm intentional with how I'm reading it versus being very kind of laissez-faire with it, for lack of better words. Um, it gives like, it makes me slow down, think about what I'm reading and all that stuff, so when I share with you guys, I actually have substantial things to actually share versus, "Hey, I read this excerpt in this book, and it was pretty cool. Next topic." You know what I mean? So, that was the book, and that then like, further led me into wanting to talk about today, like, the fake it till you make it concept. It is one of my favorite concepts because it is how basically I've lived my life. It is 100% how I've lived my life ever since I got Crohn's, back in high school, which was basically, "Hey, I know that my Crohn's flares up whenever I'm in negative emotions or whenever I feel negative emotions and um and I have this negative aura around me for a long period of time. And then when I feel positive emotions, when I exude positivity and such like that, my body feels better. I don't have as many flare ups, so they don't feel as bad, they don't hurt as bad, etc." So then the idea and and then what I ended up doing was I just had to fake being happy and positive all the time, especially at school, because that's where I was for more than half the day. And what I didn't want was just to, like, go through school quiet, glum, all that stuff, but then have my Crohn's flare up at school when I can't even address it. It's not like I'm home and I can, like, lie down or whatever it is, right? I can't do any of that, so I faked being positive for so long until I actually was being more positive, more outgoing, more happy, more all these things with everybody that I was talking to, um, and it was just a nice time. Like, it was a much better time, right? And then that fed into when I got to college and faking like you know more than you actually do, just so people would, either they would ask you questions and you could help people out, or they wouldn't ask you questions and you could fake not knowing as much as you know, so people don't bother you and ask you questions. Fake being outgoing so you can make more friends. Fake being interesting so you can have better chance of talking to people and starting conversations. Fake being this like really heavy on fitness guy. Um, Sorry, my fiance just texted me and I lost my train of thought. Fake being kind of this guy who loves fitness, so you can have, work out with people and have more conversations like that. And fake a lot of times we just fake doing things because we want to like engage with other people and have these conversations and have these like moments and things like that. And then at some point, if you do it long enough and the interest develops or your thoughts develop or um your likes and dislikes develop, some things that you fake end up being real. Like, oh, I do actually like this, and now I do know things about this because I faked it for so long, and I had to keep, stay in this space and all that stuff. And now I really do enjoy it. It's not faking anymore. I am a positive person. I do like going to the gym. I do know things about this, and I want to share with people all that stuff. Or the flip side is you just don't care about it anymore. You don't want to fake it anymore, and then you just don't. Um, But the fake it till you make it method has been there for years, decades, hundreds of years, like, fake it till you make it is just, like, a worse way to say the alter ego method, where you develop an alter ego of yourself that does the things that you wanna do, but you don't have the confidence to do it and put your name on it, therefore you and put your personality in it, therefore you develop this alter ego who then does that for you. It is no longer Arish doing this, it is now Entro doing this, as an example. And Arish is not always held like, I personally don't hold Arish liable for things because he wouldn't say things like that, Entro would. Or, you know, um I don't say certain things in conversations in person, and people are like, "Oh, how come you're so different in person and different in your videos?" Well, that's Entro speaking, that's not Arish. Things like that, right? So there is value to these different fake it till you make it effects, alter ego method, the protege effect. Like, there's always really interesting results that come out of these concepts and methods that I really find could benefit people if they actually thought about it and thought into it and actually tried it out, to be honest. I've tried the alter ego method so much, but I think it's just so hard to do with what I do because I talk to so many people outside of videos about books. And it turns into like, um, I don't I don't know what my I don't know what my alter ego would be. That's not who I am. I don't feel like I have any limitations within myself that I'm like, stopping or like burying, that I need to create an alter ego that then would like fulfill those, um whatever it is that I've buried, while the original me keeps them, inside all that stuff. So alter ego method really didn't work for me, or it hasn't yet, and I really don't think it ever will, because whatever I want to do, I will try and make sure Arish does it, and then it's like Arish is different. Arish is not different from Encho. Like, we're the same person. I've the protege effect has worked so many times with me. And it's one of the reasons, like, at work, at my job and stuff, it's it's why I like teaching my um my juniors, because they teaching them helps me ensure that I'm giving them good information. Therefore, I need to ensure that I understand the information to the extent that I'm trying to teach it, and then a little bit further in case any questions come up that I need to know, that I need to like be able to give them more information on. If I didn't have, if I, and that only happened when you have people who are learning from you. That only happens when you have people who are depending on you. If you don't have people like that, it's hard to, formulate that situation without it actually like existing in real life. Not saying it can't happen, right? You could definitely go learn something and then just, pretend that you're typing up a paper or typing up like a summary, like spark noting it for a friend or spark noting it for your younger sibling or whatever it is to know later on. You could definitely use that approach to help you learn something more deeply, help you learn something in a better way, etc. So that's just what I want to talk to you guys about. These podcasts lately have been super short, 30 minutes long, because I don't know. I feel like not much is happening in life, in the books I read, or the topics that I want to talk about to where I need to go in deeply with you guys. But these are always fun things to talk about. And I also keep recording these so fucking late because life just gets in the way. um, but that being said, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week whenever you're hearing this. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day when you're hearing this. Um, Love you, appreciate you. And if you think anybody you know would like this, like listening to me banter and talk and rant and all that stuff, send them the podcast. Send them, just give them whichever episode you think you liked the most, and tell them, hey, I think you would like this. And if they don't, they don't. It is what it is. And if they do, dope. We got more gangs here. We got more friends here. That being said, I will talk to you guys next week. Bye bye.